is the correct one. You can't say the stronger argument is the correct one.
Is it better to go for a stronger argument?
No, it's best to go for the truth.
But then if you don't know the truth, you go for the stronger argument or the weaker argument?
I keep looking.
You suspend belief until it's proven.
Well, do you suspend belief
Can I ask you
if there's a stronger argument, or you accept the stronger argument until you verify otherwise?
Until it's proven.
So in that case, you could effectively deny God regardless of the evidences of that. You can deny God regardless of the evidences that are presented.
No.
Of course, because until yes, you can.
You haven't come
See,
up with very good
he says
evidence.
you can. You says you
haven't come
can't.
up with very good evidence so far. You haven't come
What
up
evidence would convince you?
Well, if
Hold on. What evidence would convince you?
Just for the time being, this
Yes.
is not a great answer.
Yes.
But if somebody had their leg chopped off
Yes.
and I prayed,
Yes.
and the leg grew back
Yes.
in front of me,
Yes.
I
You'd
would
believe
not-
in God, would you?
No, I don't know, but I'd be very.
Oh, you don't know
No,
still?
listen.
Right.
It's got to
Okay.
be something.
No, listen. I'll give you my answer.
As soon as,
But it would think. Well, maybe there is a God.
Okay.
I would be a bit shaky.
Maybe a bit shaky, yeah.
It's never gonna happen,
But what
is
would
it?
convince you, though? That's not going to convince you either. A chopped leg growing back hasn't convinced you. What's going to convince
It
you?
might convince me.
No, you said it might not.
something that black categorically.
If it,
It might not. 50 Shades of Grey.
I'd still have to. I'd still want to. I'm sceptical about everything,
Right. So that can never.
which is a good thing.
So that can never end, right?
Well, no, no.
So that can never end.
If I died,
So in other words,
if I
that means
died-
that you never accept
If I
God.
died, I went to heaven.
Not to your level, anyway.
If I died, I went to heaven. Then I think, well, man, there is a God.
Yeah.
No, but you wouldn't.
Okay.
Well, maybe I wouldn't.
Because
I'd be
because
difficult.
you didn't believe
I'd be
completely.
argumentative and say, I'm going to
You'd be in
be.
hell going,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah.
oh, oh. There was a God.
So effectively, where we've
That's the parody
where we've
of the
got
position that
to
we have.
is that actually you haven't presented anything that you would be convinced that God exists.
Well, I'm
Why
not.
not?
Well, I've got to think about that question. Maybe I think the leg one would. That would go a long
You're
way.
still undecided, aren't you?
That would go a long way. I'm absolutely undecided. But that would give me cause to think that you might be right.
It's the only rational position.
No, but you see, the thing is this. I'll tell you why it's irrational.
What, to be undecided?
I'll tell you why it's irrational.
To be undecided?
I'll tell you why it's irrational.
To be undecided?
Relax.
This could go on forever.
Relax. Well, for you,
I'm relaxed.
it might go
Are
on
you
forever,
saying-
but
are you saying-
I'd have to
just
walk away and
clarify,
probably ignore you.
Just to clarify what
So
you said.
I tell you why. The reason why it's irrational is because effectively
To be
you've said
undecided.
to me, what's the evidence for you accepting the Creator? And when I asked you what evidence would suit you, you haven't come up with anything. What would affect you by saying that yes, okay, God does exist? Effectively, what you've done, even despite thinking about it, you've decided actually I'm not going to accept it regardless.
I'm not never going
So
to.
even if it's a chopped leg and it grows back,
accept anything regardless.
fine.
But does the Earth go around the sun, or does the sun go around the Earth?
I think we all know the answer to that.
Yeah, but what? You didn't think that 1,000 years ago. They thought.
What's that got to do with what we're discussing?
Well, if you looked up into the sky,
Yeah.
it looks as like the Earth is going around the sun.
I know, but
So it's a perfectly reasonable. Sorry, the sun goes around the Earth. It's a perfectly reasonable explanation. No, you couldn't be criticised for it for believing that. But it's not true.
What's that got to do with the discussion?
what's that got to do with the
being had?
discussion? Sorry.
Lots of things that look reasonable
Yes.
aren't true.
Like the flat Earth.
So
human infallibility.
We should keep on looking, keep
Okay.
on turning it over, arguing about it, looking at it. We should never accept anything as absolutely
So we come to
true.
no certainty on anything then.
No, that's why they have theories in science.
So we have no certainty on
We have
anything.
no
then?
certainty.
On anything.
No.
So there's
How are you asking for empirical evidence?
yeah,
or something?
exactly.
But they'll lead
Yeah,
to science
exactly.
if you don't
theories.
accept
So
it
you ask me
anyway.
for evidence for a creator, yet you yourself have come up with no evidence that you would find overwhelmingly convincing. Okay, and you said that yes, you do accept certain things purely out of good reasons for believing those things.
You're putting words in my mouth.
In faith.
I
In
accept
faith.
most things.
Mothers.
Most of us accept most things.
Yes.
Because it's too much trouble to look for the evidence.
Or you find good reasons to believe it.
No, it's just we can't go through life constantly looking for epistemological problems about. I'm trying to think of
Who
Australia.
made you sandwich? Is
Yeah,
it really
yeah.
cucumber in it?
Is there really cucumber in the sandwich?
Well, that's what you're doing with God.
No, of course.
Yes.
But it's a trivial. The cucumber question is trivial.
Yes.
It doesn't matter really.
Yes.
At the end of the day,
Yes.
it doesn't matter.
Yes.
So I'm not going to spend a lot of time worrying about the cucumber in the sandwich.
yeah.
But if it's a big question,
Like God.
by God.
Have you spent a,
Then
have you
we
spent,
need-
a,
when-
have
and then
you
I
spent a
need-
huge amount of time thinking about that?
Yes.
And have you
No,
spent?
I want some evidence.
And have you spent a huge amount of time of the universe and the argument from contingency? And your
I've
answer
spent-
and your answer
I
to
don't
all
know.
of that
I
is.
don't know how much time I've spent on it.
And your
It's
answer
more
to that,
than most.
your answer to all of that is, I just don't know.
A lot of it is.
Yeah.
And I think you don't know either.
But you're suspending I don't know to not thinking about what the possibilities
No,
might be.
I keep saying, I've said.
Excuse me for putting words in your mouth. I
Everybody
think what
else
he's
is.
saying he can't know. Not that he doesn't. He can't know. He doesn't know a way.
I'm not even
of
that
knowing.
bright.
So you think thinking is not a way of knowing things?
Yeah, but he hasn't come to a conclusion. He can't come.
Yeah,
to
I could be
but-
deluded in my thinking. Is it possible I could be?
Oh, so you're
I
deluded.
could be deluded.
So you're not- okay.
I think everybody can.
I
Everybody can be deluded,
this is
including me.
To be fair, this is a clear example of somebody who doesn't want to engage with the arguments.
Just do it.
No, you're not.
That's not fair.
I tell you what.
That's not
well,
fair.
let-
I've tried my best.
because when you know the logical conclusion is a necessary existence,
I don't believe it. I don't accept
what the
that.
atheist does is he throws the joker into the pile, which is the I don't know.
No, it's not a joker.
Which basically,
No.
which basically suspends the discussion from
Nobody knows.
thinking.
Nobody
I
knows.
tell you what. I tell you. No, it hasn't suspended
say
my
something? Can I
thinking,
say
but
something?
obviously in your case it
Can I
has.
say- Darwin tells us a lot about the evolution of life, but he can tell us nothing about where life actually came
from.
And nobody knows. I don't know. You don't know. I don't know. Seems to me if we don't know,
We stop thinking.
It's proper. No. It's proper.
Well, that's what you're saying.
No, it's not.
That's what you're saying. Well, that's exactly what you're saying. Of course it is.
It's proper to say,
Of course
I don't know. Let's keep on looking.
Yeah, and keep on looking.
Keep on looking.
And
until we do know.
coming up with rational reasons.
Well, you've given up looking and said, I
not
believe
at
in
all.
God.
No, that's not true at all.
that's the miscalculation.
You're the one who's suspended your judgment.
No.
I've taken mine to the logical conclusion, and the logical conclusion is a necessary existence. A necessary existence that answers to everything else, right?
How
So
do you get from that to your
that's
God
actually
and your
a
prophet?
good, surprisingly, that's a good question actually.
What do you mean
So,
surprisingly?
because from you, so
why do
basically,
you have to pepper everything with
basically, so
Why do you do
are you that
argument so
sensitive? Are you really that sensitive?
argument weak? No,
You
I'm
know,
observing.
are you getting upset? Are you really getting that
Why do you have to
upset?
pepper?
Are you really that upset? Come on.
Why do you have to pepper?
Do you want a
everything
tissue?
with
Do you want a
insults?
tissue?
No, I just
So
want you to be nice.
I am being nice.
I don't want
It's a joke.
I don't want you to be nice.
So-
I want you to be logical.
I am being logical with you. So the argument was, how from this necessary existence do you arrive at Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? So how do you do it? What do? You study the claims that the person is making. You study the character of the individual. Are they trustworthy? You study things that they are claiming to be a miracle, like the Quran, for example,
Would
and
you be
you
deluded?
study the questions.
Would you- I'll come back
You
to the-
study.
would you be
Well,
deluded?
let me just finish my point. You study the claim that this is a miracle from the Creator, and you study what those miracles might
How
be.
do we study that?
Hold on a second. You study those miracles and what those miracles might be. You look at the prophecies, for example, that the Quran makes,
What?
and
Give
you
me
look at
one.
those.
Give me one.
So there's a chapter called Surah Rome. It's about the Roman and the Persian empires, and at the time, the Persians overran the Romans to an extent where everyone believed that the Romans would basically die out, they would be finished. The Quran makes a claim in Surah Rome that between 3 to 9 years the Romans will reconquer and defeat the Persians. Now that was a counterintuitive claim, and it was made some 9 years before the event actually took place. Now when that actually did take place, the question that the person would have to ask is, either he guessed it, but it was counterintuitive.
Could have guessed it.
Could have guessed it, but it was a very counterintuitive
Doesn't
claim.
matter, he guessed it.
Fine, but he effectively he would have put all his eggs in one basket, because if that event didn't happen, it would have falsified the Quran, right? Falsified the Quran, because the prophecy would have been wrong, right? The other thing is that there were many reasons as to why the prophecy could have failed. So, for example, the final defeat of the Persian and the Roman Empire came at the Islamic Empire. That could have conquered it first. The Romans could have potentially conquered or tried to conquer.
I've lost interest, honestly.
Yeah, But this is the point,
I mean,
you
who
see.
cares?
You asked me for evidences as to why I think the Quran is a miracle. One of those is a prophecy, or prophecies within the Quran. The other one would be that the grammatical structure of the Quran itself, the language itself,
Anyway,
is beyond that of human comprehension or ability, basically.
what about all these other beliefs and faiths?
We believe that there might be truth in many of those, because we believe that we believe
Some
that
of them nonsense.
we believe that there were.
cargo cults,
Can I just
are they-
finish? I'll answer your question. We believe that there were more than 120,000 messengers that were sent to all of the people. So the Quran says we never punish a people until we send them a warner. So we believe that everyone received the message in some by messengers. Now, in their own tongues, from their own culture. Now, we believe that throughout time, throughout history, mankind, humankind, have changed the message of God. Now, in recent times, we find a lot of similarities between Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, peace be upon all of them, and their message, which is that God is one, God is absolute, God is eternal, and we find a lot of similarities. Now, we share in those prophets.
You're welcome to your belief.
I agree with you, but what I'm just giving you reasons why I believe it to be so.
I don't object to you believing
That's
things.
fine. I'm not asking you to
believe
object.
what you like.
I'm not. You asked me for evidence.
I don't think it's
and
evidence.
That's fine for you.
It's not evidence.
But you haven't studied
My
it.
problem is-
Yeah, but you haven't studied it.
Well, I've studied lots of things.
No, I know, but you haven't studied
Well,
Islam.
can you give me I've asked a long time ago. I asked for a
Yes.
single piece of unfalsifiable.
He has done that.
Well, what was
He
it?
said the grammatical. He said the miracle of the Quran being different.
Is a grammatical miracle.
Can only come from God. It's essentially. That,
So, for
that's a
example,
subjective view.
if
It's just faith.